Welcome to our first passage, which is called Why We Need to Protect Octopuses, and go straight to the questions. And that's what we're going to do right now. So let's go down and find the questions. Here they are. Questions 1 to 7. Do the following statements agree with the information given in the passage on the previous page? Well, the first key bit of information there is with the information given in the passage. So it's not talking about what we think, it's all about the information that's in the passage. That's very important. In boxes 1 to 7 on your answer sheet, write true if the statement agrees with the information. Okay, so true means it agrees. The next one is false if the statement contradicts the information. So if something contradicts information, that means it is different to that information. And then finally, we have not given. If there is no information on this. So a lot of students get confused between not given and false. So false means the passage and the question, they have different information. On the other hand, not given means we don't know. There's no information about that actual question. So let's have a look at the first question, number 1. Octopuses take a long time to change the color of their skin. So after you've read the question, you should think about the keywords and synonyms. And the keywords here, or the important words, are octopuses, long time, change, color, skin. Now, this word here could be very important, skin, because maybe in the passage it might talk about changing the color of something else. Now, after you have thought about the keywords, you should try and think of synonyms, because the words in the text and the words in the questions are probably going to be different. So for the first word octopus, there's probably no synonym that we could use to describe octopus. Long time, well, for long time, it might describe the duration. So maybe it will say something like 10 minutes. And 10 minutes, well, that is a long time to change color. Next one, change. Well, they might say alter. Alter is another way to say change. For the word color, they might say something like hue. And for skin, there's not really any other way to paraphrase that. They could use maybe something like exterior or external, depending on what the passage says. So now we know the keywords. Now we've got a few synonyms. So let's go back up to the passage and we'll see if we can locate where the answer is. Now, when you're trying to find the answer, you should be scanning for the keywords. And you need to do this very quickly because remember, you don't have much time in the real test. So let's do it together. Octopuses under threat, habitat loss, no. Their decline, no. These animals are suited, no. Features that set them apart, no. For example, ability, that could be what we're looking for. Change, there we go. So ability to change both the color and texture of their skin in seconds. There we go. So we've got the answer, skin in seconds. Now it says in seconds, so is seconds long or not long? Correct, it's not long. If you can do something in mere seconds, it's not very long at all. Now you might be thinking, well, it says they. What does they mean? Great question, and you've always got to be careful about when you see things like they or this. You need to be careful that you've got the correct understanding. So if we go back, it says these animals, so that's connected with they. And then it says at the start, octopuses, so that's connected with these animals. So we can say that they is talking about the octopuses. So we can see that they can change their skin color in just seconds. So let's go down to the question and decide on the answer. Octopuses take a long time to change the color. Well, that's not true because they can do it in mere seconds. So the answer there is definitely 100% false. Now, let's move on to the next question, number 2. The study by Dr. Chen focused on octopuses from deep sea environments. So whenever you get something like this, a name, that is fantastic because you can't paraphrase a name, so you should be able to find where that's located in the passage very, very quickly. Now, the other important thing is that the octopuses came from deep sea environments in this study. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find it. Now, just before we find the answer, something to mention about true, false, and not given questions is they come in order. So that means we found the answer for number 1. It's right here. So that means number 2 will be somewhere below. So maybe number 2 will be here. Maybe it will be a bit lower. Maybe it will be lower. But we don't know exactly where it'll be, but it will be below the answer to the previous question. So let's see if we can find Dr. Chen. So let's start here. Share none of these abilities, gain insights. In 2017, a research team, there we go. There's Dr. Chen. So let's highlight that. Examined how octopuses, okay, that's another one of our keywords, developed such advanced intelligence. So that's saying why they were doing the study. They studied the differences between octopuses, there's that keyword again, and their close relatives, including squid and cuttlefish. This helped them identify a set of genes, one gene, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if you remember, the question said that the octopuses were from deep sea environments. Well, we've got octopuses here. We've got Dr. Chen, it's talking about the study, but it doesn't say where the octopuses came from. So the answer for number 2 will definitely be not given. Why? Because we don't know. Remember, if you don't know from reading the passage, that means the answer is not given. So let's move on to the next one now. Number 3, the only function of the PCDH gene is to create brain cells. Now, whenever you get something like this, only, be careful, because in the passage it might talk about 2 or 3 different things. But here we're looking for 1 because only means 1, right? So it's saying the only function of this gene here is to create brain cells. And also, just like with Dr. Chen, it's also fantastic when you get a name of something because you can't paraphrase it. There's no real other way to say a PCDH gene. So let's go up and see if we can find where the passage talks about that. So let's start underneath where we found the answer for question 2, which is around here. This helped them, genes, okay, that may be responsible, okay, one gene in particular, known, there we go. There's the gene straight away, PCDH, plays a role, there we go, forming and strengthening connections between brain cells. So if you look there, there's 2 functions. It's got forming. Forming is just another word to create something. And then it's also got another function, which is strengthening. So it looks like forming is number 1, the first function, and then strengthening is number 2. But if you remember, the question said only creating brain cells. So let's go back down to the question now. The only function of the PCDH gene is to create brain cells. Well, that is false. That is not true because there's another function. It was talking about strengthening the connections between brain cells. So let's move on to the next question. Number 4. In most cases, human nerves cannot heal properly once they have been damaged. So that's important there, most cases. So it might say sometimes they can, so we've got to be really careful. And it also says properly. That's an important word there as well. So let's go back up and see if we can find human nerves and not healing properly and damaged. So in humans, changes to this gene, no. Scientists believe, no. The body of the octopus may hold clues, nerve damage, okay, maybe. This is a condition where the body signals, okay, fair enough. Humans, because that's what it's talking about for this question, humans, not octopuses. Once nerve cells are damaged, they rarely recover fully. So that means most of the time they do not recover. And that sounds very similar to what the question said, but let's just keep reading. And treatment options are often limited or ineffective. Octopuses, however, okay, so now it's talking about octopuses, so that's not relevant. So let's read it one more time. In humans, once nerve cells are damaged, they rarely recover fully. So that means most of the time they do not repair properly. or heal properly. And look what it says here. In most cases, human nerve cells cannot heal properly. So it's the same meaning. The wording's different. Yes, the wording is different, but the meaning is the same. That's why the answer is true. Now let's move on to the next one now, number 5. An octopus. So now we're moving on to octopuses. We're not talking about humans. Is able to regenerate an arm that works as well as the original. So a key thing there is arm, because they might talk about regenerating something else. So we've got to be careful. And as well as the original. So that means it has the same capabilities, or it's equal to the original. So let's go back up to the top and see if we can find anything about octopuses and regenerating arms. Octopuses, however, show a remarkable ability. There we go. So we've got octopuses' ability to regrow arms. There's one of the key words, arms. And let's keep reading now. These limbs contain not only muscle and skin, okay, complex networks of during regeneration, okay, maybe this could be it. These nerves reconnect, okay, and function as they did before. Okay, so the nerves are functioning as they did before. So that means the same as the original. And if you keep reading, there's even more information with no loss of strength or loss of coordination. So that is simply saying, yes, they can regenerate their arms, and those arms, those new arms, work just as well as the old arms. So let's go back down and just double check, always double check. An octopus is able to regenerate an arm that works as well as the original. Well, we can say the answer there is definitely true. Now let's move on to number 6, which is there are no current treatments for spinal injuries. So we're going to look for spinal injuries. We've also got to look for current, because maybe it will talk about the future, or maybe it will talk about the past. All right, so let's go back up to the top of the page and see if we can find it. So remember, the answer is going to be below the previous answer. Scientists believe that studying this process in more detail, there we go. Found the keyword, spinal injuries, nerve degeneration, or other conditions. In 2010, Okay, so that's changing the topic. So let's go back here. Studying this process could help researchers develop treatments for spinal injuries. But does it say there are no current treatments for spinal injuries? No, it doesn't. We don't know if there are current treatments for spinal injuries. So the answer for this one is going to be 100% not given, because we don't know. We don't know if that's true or false. Let's look at the last question now for true, false, not given. Many animals can regenerate nerves as well as octopuses. So that's a key one there, or key word there, nerves. Okay, they're talking about something specific. It says many animals, and it says as well as octopuses. So let's go back up and see if we can find anything to do with animals and regenerating nerves, just like octopuses. So let's start from where the previous answer was located. In 2010, James Wu uncovered a reason. There we go, octopus's nerve regeneration abilities. They found that before regeneration begins, octopuses release a group of proteins. Even more remarkably, Okay, so that's talking about nerves, but it hasn't said anything about other animals. So let's continue. So this impressive ability is rarely seen in other animals. There we go. So this could be where it is. Now, like I talked about before, you got to be careful of when it says something like this, because you have to be sure that you're understanding correctly. So let's see what this is talking about. It talks about newly formed nerve pathways are able to reconnect with precision. So that's what it's talking about. Regenerating nerve pathways, and those pathways being able to reconnect. Let's go back even further and you'll see it talks here. The octopus's nerve regeneration abilities. So that's what it's talking about. And then it says rarely seen in other animals. But the question says many animals can do the same as octopuses when it comes to nerve regeneration. Well, this is saying something different. It's saying this ability is rarely seen in other animals. So maybe very few, a very, very small amount of animals can, but not many. So let's go back down here. Many animals can regenerate nerves as well as octopuses. Well, the answer there is definitely false because that's not true. In the question, it says rarely seen in other animals. So they were the true, false, and not given questions. They were 7. They were pretty simple. So make sure that when you're doing reading passage 1, you get all of these questions correct because the questions get harder in passage 2 and 3. Now let's go on to the next set of questions and have a look. So questions 8 to 13. Complete the notes below. Choose one word only from the passage for each answer. Now this here is really important. Okay, from the passage. That means you go to the passage and you choose a word. So for example, maybe you choose the word emotion. Well, when you put that as your answer, you don't need to change it. So for example, you don't need to say emotional or you don't need to say emotionless. You just choose that word and then you put it in your answer. So let's go back to the questions and keep reading. Write your answers in boxes 8 to 13 on your answer sheet. Now, there are 2 important things that you should do when you're doing note completion questions. The first one is you should read the heading because the heading is going to tell you where the information will be located. So this one is talking about why octopuses should be protected, and we'll have a look at where that's located in just a second. The next thing you should do is try to predict the answers if you have time. So for example, this one here says there something makes. Well, after there, you would probably have a noun. So for example, their water, their cat. Let's look at number 9, moving 9 around. Well, here you'd probably also have a noun or a thing. And if you're not sure, try putting a word in there and see if it makes sense. So for example, let's put a verb in there. Some octopuses have been seen moving eat around. Well, that doesn't really make sense. So a verb wouldn't be the answer. Let's say I say something like water. Can you move water? Yes, you can. You can move a noun. So the answer there is definitely going to be noun. So number 10, appear to have something. Well, when you have something, that will be a noun. Number 11, a certain octopus used a something. Well, after a, we're going to have a noun. More specifically, we're going to have a singular noun. So put that in there. Sorry, singular noun. Let's move on to 12. It's not easy to something, the emotions. Well, after to, we're going to have a verb. Okay, so number 12 is probably a verb. And last one, color changes in octopuses may be a sign of ... Well, after the word of, we're going to have a noun. So it looks like most of these are going to be nouns, apart from number 12, which will be a verb. Now, one last thing I forgot to mention is look what it says right here. One word only. So that means, like it says, you only need one word. If you choose 2 words, your answer will be incorrect. All right, so let's look at the first question, number 8. There's something makes many people think octopuses are weird animals who lack feeling. And we're looking for something that makes people think that octopuses are weird and that octopuses lack feeling. So that's what we need to keep in our mind when we're looking. And we also need to remember the title, Why Octopuses Should Be Protected. So let's go up and have a look at the passage and see if we can find anything to do with that. So let's have a look. While the potential medical benefits of studying octopuses are significant, they are, there we go, not the only reason to protect the species. So we know that the answers might be located in this paragraph. Let's keep reading. Look what it says about people. People are often more willing as they view... In contrast, octopuses are sometimes seen as strange. That's another, or a synonym for weird. And it also, if I'm not mistaken, the question said lack feeling or to not have feeling. Well, that's what unfeeling means. And look what it says, due to their appearance. Remember, the question was talking about why we think, or some people think that octopuses are strange or weird. And there we go. It's right there, appearance. And remember, we were looking for a noun, and appearance is a noun. So we can put appearance in right there. Remember, always check your spelling and always check if it fits. So let's have a look. Their appearance makes many people think. Well, that looks good. The sentence or the note makes sense. Now let's move on to the next one. Some octopuses have been seen moving something around. So the key words there are some octopuses, seen, and then moving something around. So when we go back up to the passage, we need to look for an octopus that has been moving something. So let's go back up to where we found the last answer. However, observations in both laboratories and aquariums suggest a different story. An octopus named Inky, kept in the blah, 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 escaped, navigated the floor, slipped through. Okay, well, that's nothing about moving. Let's keep going. Other octopuses have been observed unscrewing jar lids, arranging objects in their tanks, and even playing. So there we go. It's talking about other octopuses. Some octopuses have been observed. Well, that's talking about have been seen or have been witnessed. And then if you look here, does it say anything about moving anything? Yes, it does, right here. If you arrange something, you move it. So the answer there is going to be this word here, objects, because they are moving objects. So let's go back down and we'll put it into the space. Objects. Now note here, you must have the S. If you don't have the S, the answer is 100% wrong. Now again, let's quickly check. Some octopuses have been seen moving objects around. Well, that makes sense grammatically, so that's the correct answer. Now let's move on to the next one, which doesn't actually have a space or a gap we need to put a word in, but that's okay. You should always keep that in your mind because it's going to help you to know where the answer is going to be. Because this next one here is about octopuses being aware of their surroundings. So if we can find that, we know that the answer for number 10 is probably going to be next. So let's read it. Some octopuses appear to have something when it comes to people. So again, some octopuses, they have something. So we're looking for a noun when it comes to people. So we need to look for octopuses have something when it comes to people. So let's go back up and see if we can find something like that. So let's start here. Even playing, suggesting a surprising level of problem solving or awareness. That's what it was talking about before. In some cases, individual octopuses have shown preferences for people. Okay, there we go. Could be here. Let's just keep reading. Refuse to cooperate with specific researchers. Hidden food, indicating not only intelligence, but personality. So remember, we were looking for something that octopuses have when it comes to people. Well, if you look at this sentence, what do they have? Correct, they have preferences. We're looking for a noun, and that seems to fit. So let's just go back down and double check. Some octopuses even appear to have preferences. Make sure you have that S or ES here when it comes to people. So let's just double check. Some octopuses even appear to have preferences when it comes to people. That makes sense. So that is the answer. All right, let's move on now to the next one. Now, the next one talks about a study. Okay, again, we don't need to we don't need to fill in the blank here, but that's okay. You should always keep that in your mind, that the next thing you should probably see is Dr. Klein's study. And it says that they have a purpose behind their actions. Now, let's keep reading. Look at number 11. A certain octopus. So that's important. It's talking about one octopus only, a certain. Used a something as a type of home. So we're looking for one octopus which used something very specific as a home. And remember, we're looking for a singular noun. So let's see if we can find that. And remember, think about Dr. Klein as well. There we go. There's Dr. Klein. So they have clear and purposeful behavior. One octopus, there you go, was observed carrying half a coconut across the ocean floor. Maybe that could be the answer. Later using it as a shelter. There you go. Shelter is another way to say home or house. So if we look here, what is the singular noun? Correct. It is coconut. Now you might be thinking about the word half, but half, that wouldn't make sense. You need to have the actual thing that the octopus used. So let's go back down and just always double check. So it's not, number 11, a certain octopus used a, so we can put coconut in there, as a type of home. It makes sense, it fits grammatically, so let's move on to the next one. It's not easy to something, the emotions of octopuses. So we're looking not easy, we're looking for a verb as well, and we're looking for emotions of octopuses. So let's go back up and see if we can find that. So let's start reading here. This kind of action suggests, okay, the study adds to evidence, they're intelligent, okay. When it comes to, there we go, emotion in octopuses, it is difficult to measure scientifically. So there you go. There is a verb. So that could be the answer. Let's just keep reading. Always double check. Okay, you should never choose the answer or the first answer you see straight away. However, some behaviors suggest in some cases, yeah, so it looks like measure will be the correct answer because it talks about emotions and it talks about, or there's a verb. So let's put that in there and see if it fits. Measure. So it's not easy to measure the emotions of octopuses. That seems to make sense. So let's do the last one now. Color changes in octopuses may be a sign of. So the key words there will definitely be color changes and then sign of. And again, we're looking for a noun. Okay, it's really important. Always think about what am I looking for. All right, so let's go back up and see if we can find the answer. So, however, some behaviors suggest they are more sensitive. In some cases, they change color. There we go. Change color quickly when touched or when certain people come near, as if reacting with fear. Okay, fear is a noun. There are also reports of octopuses spraying water. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so remember there were two things in that question. It talked about changing color. And then we needed a noun. So fear is a noun and changing color is what the question was talking about. So it looks like the last answer there will be fear. Let's just put it in and double check. So color changes in octopuses may be a sign of fear. It looks good, it fits grammatically, and it makes sense. Now the last thing to mention with these types of questions, note completion questions, is that I hope you've seen that the questions come in order. So if we go back up here, the first answer was seen, where was it? Here we go, appearance, okay, right there. And then later in the green, we found the next one. And then of course the next one was below that, and the next one was below that, and so on and so forth. So just remember, true, false, and not given questions come in order, as do note completion questions. Passage 2 is where the IELTS reading test starts to get a bit more challenging. The vocabulary is more difficult and the questions often require more time to complete. All right, so here is our reading passage 2. As you can see, it's called The Terracotta Army of Qin Shi Huang. Now, I hope I said that correctly. I can't say I'm fluent in Chinese. Now, for the purposes of this video, we're not going to do that. We're just going to go straight down to the questions. So here they are, questions 14 to 20. Reading passage 2 has 7 paragraphs, A to G. Choose the correct heading for each paragraph from the list of headings below. Write the correct number, 1 to 10, in boxes 14 to 20 on your answer sheet. Now this here is very important because it's telling you what to do and what not to do. You need to write a number as your answer. You don't need to write the full name of the heading. So always be careful of that. Now, as you can see, here are the headings. We've got 9 different headings to choose from. And then down here are the questions. We have 7 different questions and 7 different paragraphs. So let's start with the first question, which is question 14. It's about paragraph A. So when you're doing matching headings questions, you can start by reading the paragraph itself. Think about the main ideas and then give a title or a name or a heading to that paragraph. So let me show you what I mean. Let's look at paragraph A. The Terracotta Army is one of the most remarkable discoveries in Chinese history. So it's saying that this Terracotta Army is amazing. It's great. It's very important. These life-size figures, created to guard, they have become deeply connected with the country's cultural identity, even though similar burial customs existed, While much has been written about the army's purpose, it remains one of the most fascinating achievements of the ancient world. Its creation marked a major moment in Chinese history, and it all began with the vision of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. So this bit here, it looks quite small, but it could be important. So if you have a look at this paragraph, the main idea is that this Terracotta Army is amazing. It's very important. And it all started with a thought from the Emperor Qin Shi Huang. So if I was going to give a title, I'd call it something like this: An amazing thing from a vision. So now we know the main ideas and we've made a heading ourselves. We can go down to the headings that were provided. So here they are. So what we need to do is just quickly go through them one by one and think about which is the best choice for paragraph A. So a different approach to royal tombs. No, doesn't really say that. A sudden change in leadership. No. The incredible result of one man's idea. Well, that looks very close to what we talked about, so we'll quickly circle that. Now let's keep going. A large tomb with many security features. Well, no, it doesn't really talk about security. A great experience despite what was left. No. Unusual objects found near the burial site. No. A design style that influenced future rulers. No. Disagreements and architects. No, nothing about that. And problems faced during the project. Well, no, there's nothing about that. So I think we can safely say that the answer for question 14 is 3. So when you have chosen a heading, you can then cross that heading off, and it's going to make it easier for you when you do the next headings because you have less to choose from. So now let's go to the next question, which is 15, and that's about paragraph B. So let's go back up and think about what the main ideas are for this paragraph. So Qin Shi Huang, first emperor. Okay, so maybe it could be more about the emperor this time. Before his reign, the rulers were buried in smaller, simpler tombs. After taking power, Qin Shi Huang ordered the creation that would reflect his status and authority. His most trusted officials are believed to have overseen the planning and construction. Instead of using traditional burial items, the emperor ordered a vast army of life-sized clay figures to be placed underground, arranged as if ready for battle. Though historians cannot say with certainty why the idea was chosen, many believe it was meant to ensure protection. So this could be important. Historians cannot say why this idea was chosen. So when I look at this paragraph, what I think about is it's talking about Qin Shi Huang. So it's talking about the emperor. So I'm going to start with that. So the emperor. And then it talks about that he did things differently. Because look what it says. Instead of using, the emperor ordered. So it's talking about what rulers or emperors normally did, and then it's saying what Qin Shi Huang did. So I'm going to call this paragraph the emperor who did things differently. That's going to be my heading. So now I've got an idea of what this paragraph is about. Let's go back down and let's have a look at the headings, and we can choose the most appropriate one. So the first one, a different approach to royal tombs. Well, that looks good already. A sudden change in leadership? No, nothing about that. A large tomb with security features? No, nothing about security. A great experience despite what was left? No. Unusual objects found near the burial site? No, doesn't talk about that. A design style that influenced future rulers? No. Disagreements, architects? No. And problems faced during the project? No. So I'm happy to say that 15 will definitely be 1, a different approach to royal tombs. So again, we can cross that one out. So now we have less headings to choose from when it comes to the next question. So let's move on and have a look at 16 now, which is about paragraph C. So let's go back up to the paragraphs and see if we can find what paragraph C is about. So the Terracotta Army has been studied for decades. That could be important. Its construction involved a long and demanding process. So this paragraph could be about maybe the problems with construction or the challenges that were faced. Experts believe that the work progressed in phases. Okay, according to historian, the layout of the site shows signs of careful planning. That could be important. Trial and error. Thousands of warriors were made in separate parts. That's quite important. Separate parts and then assembled. Detailed on site. The sheer size. So that means the very big size of the army presented a lot of challenges, including how to, and then there are some examples. So support the weight, how to organize the production of so many unique figures. So for this one, when I'm thinking about the title or the main ideas, I would think it's something like this: a long, difficult process. Because that's what it's talking about in very simple terms. It's saying that it was a long process and there were challenges or problems that needed to be solved. So let's go back down now to the headings themselves and let's have a look. So number 2, a sudden change in leadership. Well, no, there's nothing about that. A large tomb with many security features. No. A great experience. No. Unusual objects. No. A design style that influenced future rulers. No, nothing about future rulers. Disagreements, architects. No. Here we go. Problems faced during the project. That looks very close to what we said. So we can go down and put number 9 for question 16. And again, let's cross off number 9 here. So we've got less to look at when it comes to the next questions. Now, please note that sometimes your heading or your summary is not going to be exactly the same as the headings that are provided. So if that happens, you may need to go back to the paragraph again and have a look at the main ideas one more time. So now let's go on to the next question, which is question number 17, and that's paragraph D. So let's see what we can find about the main ideas there. Here it is. So when fully constructed, the Terracotta Army had a vast area, so a very big area. It was the size of a small city, so it's saying it's very, very big. The main sections included horses. The site stretches over 20 square kilometers. So again, it's focusing on the size again. And researchers are still investigating whether it connects. The pits were carefully arranged. Okay, so maybe this could be about the features. Narrow passageways between sections acted as barriers, okay, to slow down intruders. So maybe this is about security. Guards would have been stationed above the tomb. There were traps, maybe hidden defenses were installed to protect the emperor's remains. Qin Shi Huang was so determined to secure his legacy that he insisted of keeping the full design a closely guarded secret. So there are some different ideas in there, but when I think about giving this one a title, what I think of is it's talking about how big the terracotta army complex is, and it's also talking about security. So if I was going to give this a title, I'd say something like this: a huge place with lots of protection. Okay, that's the main idea of this paragraph. So let's go back down now and see if there's anything like that in the list of headings. So again, let's quickly go through them one by one. Change in leadership. No, nothing about that. A large tomb. Oh, there we go. A large tomb with many security features. That could be it. A great experience. Well, no, nothing about that. Unusual objects. No. A design style. Future rulers. No. Disagreements. No. So we can safely say that the answer for number 17 is definitely 4. So we can remove number 4 and then move on to the next one. Now, the next one is question 18, and that's talking about paragraph E. So let's go back up and let's see if we can find the main ideas. So the central tomb has never been fully excavated, okay? But ground scanning has revealed a vast chamber, okay? Believed to contain the emperor's remains, okay? There are dozens of passageways, some thought to be filled with treasures, weapons, and valuable items. One of the most intriguing finds, okay, this could be important. One of the most intriguing finds in the surrounding pits has been a collection of bronze birds and acrobats. Okay, that's interesting. Discovered in what appears to be a garden or entertainment space. These items are unusually detailed, okay, far more artistic. So this is sort of saying that these items might be a bit different or strange. So let's keep reading. Their exact function remains unclear. Some archaeologists believe they were included to reflect the emperor's desire, Others suggest... Okay, so maybe it's saying that there's some confusion about why these items were there. Others suggest they may have a symbolic meaning, okay, protect the emperor's soul, Without access to the central tomb, these questions remain open. So for this one, it sort of has two main ideas. The first one is it's saying that there is a lot of equipment. There are a lot of things, or there were a lot of things. And it's also talking about the function of these things, or why they were there is not clear to people. So this one could have two headings, I guess, but I'm just going to go with something simple, which is lots of equipment or lots of things. So let's write that in, things. But I'm going to keep in the back of my mind that it also could have another heading, because like I told you before, or we just looked at before, it talks about this. Their function remains unclear. Some people think this, other people think that. So I'm just going to keep that in my mind. So let's go back. And once again, same process. Change in leadership. No. Great experience despite what was left. No, doesn't talk about an experience. Unusual objects found near the burial site. Okay, that could be it. A design style that influenced future rulers. No. Disagreements between architects. No. Now, it does talk a little bit about the archaeologists were not in agreement, but it's not talking about architects. So just be careful there. So I think for this one, the best and most appropriate heading would have to be number 6, which is unusual objects found near the burial site. So we can cross that one off. And then let's move on to the next one now, which is question number 19, paragraph F. So let's go back up and have a look. This is a nice short paragraph, so hopefully it shouldn't take too long. Despite the size of the mausoleum and the efforts to protect it, the site did not escape damage. Okay, that could be important. After his death, parts of the complex were looted and set on fire. The emperor's body has never been found, and the original treasures are believed to be lost. Still, what remained throughout the site was enough to amaze the archaeologists who later excavated the area. So for this one, it could be something about damage, and it also could be something about this. Okay, yes, all of these bad things happened. So the parts of the complex were looted and set on fire. There was some damage, but it said the site was enough to amaze archaeologists. So it could be something like damage, but also a good experience or a good thing. So let's go back down, and I believe I remember something about that. A sudden change in leadership, no. A great experience despite what was left. Well, that looks quite good. A design style that influenced future rulers, no. Disagreements between architects, no. So the answer for that one will definitely be 5. So 19 is 5. So we can cross that off. And another thing to mention is that when you look at all of these headings here, a lot of different times, sometimes you will remember them. And because you remember them, you might actually know what the answer is when you're looking at the paragraph. So when I was looking at this paragraph and I saw this amaze the archaeologists, I actually thought about this one here, a great experience despite what was left. And that's one reason why you should go through every heading every time you're looking at a question, because it's going to put those headings into your head and you might actually know the answer while you're looking at the paragraph. Now we've got one more left, which is question number 20, paragraph G. So let's go back up here. It's quite a short one. Historian Duan Qingbo writes, the Terracotta Army stands as the most, or one of the most extraordinary achievements of the ancient world. It reflects not only the power of the first emperor, but also the skill and organization of China. The site marked a new standard that could be important. Its design sets an example that some rulers would follow in the centuries to come. Does this sound important? Well, it sounds important to me because if you remember, that's what one of the headings was talking about. But before we have a look, let's give this paragraph a name. So I would say something like a new type. Okay, a new type of tomb or burial site, which, and then I'm just going to copy the words from down here, set an example. Okay, if you're giving or creating your own heading, of course you can copy the words from the passage. It doesn't matter. What's important is that you get a general idea of the meaning of that paragraph. So let's go back down now and have a look. So a sudden change in leadership, no. A design style that influenced future rulers, yes, most likely. Disagreements between architects, no. So we can go down there and write number 7. And we don't have to, but we can cross this off anyway. So I hope that was helpful and it showed you exactly how to do matching headings questions. As you can see, they're not that difficult if you have a strategy. So let's go down now to the next set of questions. Here they are, questions 21 to 24. Complete the notes below. Choose one word only from the passage for each answer. Write your answers in boxes 21 to 24 on your answer sheet. So 2 important things there are one word only, okay? One word only. So if you choose something like red cat, well, obviously that's going to be wrong because that's 2 words. So always be careful to read the instructions. And it also says from the passage. So that means, let's pretend you're reading the passage and you think deaf is the correct word. Well, you don't need to change that to die or died. Okay, you just use that same word, death. So let's go back down and have a look at the questions themselves. So as you can see, there is a heading, and it's very important to read the heading for notes because it's going to help you find where the answers are. And this heading here is the Terracotta Army Complex. And I actually remember they were talking about the complex in, I believe, one of the first paragraphs, paragraph 2 or 3. So let's have a look here. the entire complex was as big as A. So when you're doing these questions, you need to, well, you don't need to, but you should try to predict the answers. So you can see here that we've got A. After A, we would have a singular noun. So we can just write that down there so we remember singular noun. So that's what we're looking for. The next one, experts are trying to find out if there are more something beneath the surface. So for this one here, it's probably a noun as well. And if you're not sure, try to put a specific type of word in there and see if it fits. So let's pretend we put the word eat in there. That's a verb, but if we read that, it doesn't make sense. If there are more eat, well, that doesn't make sense. But if we put a noun in there, maybe something like cats, there are more cats beneath the surface, well, that makes sense. So we know that the answer for this one is a noun, and it's probably a plural noun. So let's move on now to question 23. How small the passages were probably made it harder for something to get inside. Well, after for, we would probably have a noun. Let's go to 24 now. It says the something was not made known. So after the, we normally have a noun as well. So it looks like with all of these questions, we're looking for a noun. So now let's go and find the actual answers. So to find the answers, you need to know what you're looking for, obviously. So let's start with the first one. The complex was as big as A. Okay, so that's pretty simple. We're looking for the army complex, and we're looking for as big as A. And remember, we're looking for a noun as well. So let's have a look. Here we go. It's right here, Terracotta Army Complex. So let's read it together. Now, I was actually wrong. I thought it was in paragraph B or C, but that's okay. We found where it is. And it was the size of a small city. Okay, there we go. There's the answer. Okay, the size of a small city, or as big as a city. Now remember, we just need one word and we need a noun. So the correct answer there would be, sorry, let me write that again a bit neater. The correct answer would be city. Now, we couldn't say small city because look here, it says one word only, okay? One word only. Let's keep reading. Let's look at the next question. In the pits, okay, that's important. There were soldiers, other figures and weapons, okay? Experts are trying to find out if there are more something beneath the surface. Okay, so we're looking for, experts, they're looking for something. Is there something more beneath the surface? So let's go back up and go back to paragraph D. So the last answer was here, city. Let's keep going. The site stretches over. Researchers, that has a similar meaning, are still investigating whether it connects to a larger underground. Okay, that's beneath the surface. Network of tunnels. There we go. That looks good. Tunnels is a noun. So let's have a look if it fits. So experts are trying to find out if there are more tunnels. Let's put that in. Beneath the surface. It looks good, and make sure you've got that S, okay? If you just put tunnel, that would be incorrect and you would not get that mark, okay? So always remember, put your S in if needed. All right, let's keep going and let's continue with the next question. How small the passages were probably made it harder or maybe difficult or challenging for something to get inside. So for this one, we're looking for a noun that's trying to get inside. So let's see if we can find that. Let's go back up to paragraph D. Okay, the pits were arranged. Okay, narrow passageways between sections acted as barriers. Okay, it says slow down. So that could be what we are looking for. And then it says intruders. Okay, who were trying to enter. So it looks like intruders might be the correct answer, but let's just double check. Let's go down. Yes, we found the passages, made it harder for intruders to get inside. And again, you need to have that S. Now, just let me double check. Always double check if you have time. Yeah, who are trying to enter. Okay, so that has a very similar meaning as to get inside. All right, let's move on and go to the next one. To protect the secrecy of the burial place, the something, so noun, was not made known to all. Okay, that's an important word, all of the workers. So let's go back up and see if we can find that. So guards would have been stationed, okay, and many believe that traps, no. Protect the emperor's remains, no. Qin Shi Huang was so determined to secure his legacy that he insisted on keeping the full design, maybe that could be it, of the mausoleum a secret. Okay, even from many of those working on it. There we go. So we're looking for a noun, and it looks like design might be the noun that we're looking for. If you just have a look at the other words, mausoleum, I don't think that makes sense. Secret, no, because it talked about that, I believe. Let me just have a look. Yeah, to protect the secrecy, the design was not made known to all of the workers. Now, you might be thinking, well, why isn't mausoleum the answer? Well, that wouldn't make sense, okay? So the answer there is design. So they were the note completion questions. I think they're pretty simple if you just follow the strategy. So now let's move on to the last set of questions here. Questions, let me change to yellow, 25 to 26. Choose two letters, A to E. Okay, let me circle that one more time. Two letters. Write the correct letters in boxes 25 and 26 on your answer sheet. Which two of the following points does the writer make about Emperor Qin Shi Huang? Okay, three important things. Two, okay, you've got to talk about or choose 2 points. Writer, okay, it's about what the writer the points that the writer makes. And it's about the emperor, okay, Emperor Qin Shi Huang. Now, if I remember correctly, the paragraph about the emperor was paragraph B, so we can start off by looking there. So you can read these first if you want, but I think it's better to go and read the paragraph first and then think about what the paragraph is actually saying. So that's what we'll do. So let's have a look. Where was it? Here we go. Just as I thought. Okay, B was about the emperor. So let's have a look at what it actually says about the emperor. So it says that he was the first emperor, okay? Before his reign, rulers were buried in smaller, simpler tombs that followed local traditions. So this could be important. After taking power, Qin Shi Huang ordered the creation. That could be important as well, because it was actually him who ordered the creation of a permanent resting place that would reflect his status and authority. His most trusted officials, that could be important. His officials are believed to have overseen the planning and construction. That just means they managed the planning and construction. Instead of using traditional burial items, the emperor ordered a vast army of life-sized clay figures. So that's sort of saying that he didn't follow what other emperors were doing or other rulers were doing, because it said instead of using traditional to be placed underground, arranged as if ready for battle. Though historians cannot say with certainty, that could be important. Historians can't say with certainty, they're not 100% sure about why this idea was chosen. Many believe it was meant to ensure protection and power in the afterlife. So we've got some basic ideas about the emperor now. So let's go back and see if we can find the 2 correct points. And when we're doing this, we can simply use the process of elimination. So we can look at the 2 points here, and we can choose which ones are correct and which ones are not correct. So the first one says he didn't follow the usual traditions. Well, I think that's exactly what the passage said, because it said instead of using traditional burial items, he dot dot dot. So I think that A is definitely the answer, or one of the answers. His decision to include warriors in his tomb was influenced by his officials. Well, it does talk about his officials, but it doesn't talk about including warriors being influenced by his officials. It just said that they were or had some role in the planning and construction. It doesn't specifically say include warriors. Okay, so just be careful. So B is not the answer. Let's move on to C now. Actually, let me change the color. Historians aren't completely sure why he made the terracotta army. Well, if you remember, that's exactly what it said. It said historians are not completely sure. Okay, so we can circle that one. C looks good. Now, even though we have found the two correct answers, just quickly check the other ones just in case, especially if you have time. So let's look at the next one, which talks about his tomb. His tomb was designed by immediate family members. Well, no, it doesn't say anything about immediate family members in that paragraph. And let's move on to the last one now, which is E. He criticized the design and construction of previous tombs. Well, it doesn't say that. Oh, sorry, I'll cross out D. It doesn't say that. It does talk about previous tombs, but it doesn't say anything about he criticized, so we can cross out E. Welcome to the final passage of the IELTS reading test, and it's usually the hardest. The language is more academic, the ideas are more complex, and time pressure can really start to build. On the screen now, you can see our passage 3. It's called Technology and the Changing Workplace. Now, let's go straight down to the questions. We won't waste any time. So here they are, questions 27 to 30. Choose the correct letter, A, B, or C. Write the correct letter in boxes 27 to 30 on your answer sheet. So the first thing that you should notice there is it says write the correct letter. Okay, so when you're writing your answer, you just need to write the letter. You don't need to write the full option that you think is correct. So let's have a look at the first one. The first paragraph tells us about. So whenever you get something like this, the first paragraph, the second paragraph, that's obviously really good because it tells you exactly where you need to look to find the answer. Now, when you're doing multiple choice, I would recommend that you just quickly read the options and get an overall idea of what each option is about. So let's quickly do that. The percentage of roles that will be entirely automated by AI, okay? Okay, let's look at B now. The growing influence of technology in creative industries. Why workers are concerned about being replaced by technology. And then finally, the predicted impact of AI on employment in the coming years, so in the future. So now we've read the options and we know exactly where to look. So let's go up to the first paragraph and we will see if we can find the answer. So recent studies estimate that 10 to 20% of jobs around the world could either disappear or change significantly within the next decade. So this sentence here looks like it could be talking about the future of work. So let's keep reading. As artificial intelligence becomes more advanced, it's being used in more industries, okay? In manufacturing, okay, so we're giving an example. Smart robots are improving production speed, while in offices, AI tools help companies sort through large amounts of data, okay? These developments, okay, suggest that workers in many sectors may need to adapt to stay employable in the changing job market. So it looks like this paragraph is talking about the impact of technology. There are a few specific examples, like we've got here, manufacturing and offices. So let's go back down to the options and we'll choose the best one. So let's start with number 1. the percentage of roles that will be entirely, that's the key, or that's our keyword there, entirely automated by AI. Or it does talk about some percentages, but it doesn't say entirely automated by AI. So we can remove A. Next one, the growing influence of technology in creative industries. Well, it does talk about some industries. It said manufacturing and in offices, but it doesn't talk about creative industries. So we can remove that one. C, why workers are concerned about being replaced by technology. Well, no, it doesn't say anything about that. So we can remove C. And then let's have a look at D, the predicted impact of AI on employment in the coming years. Yes, that looks good because that's what it talks about. So that's how you should do multiple choice questions. So let's move on to the next one now, which is 28. According to the second paragraph. Again, this is really good because now we know exactly where to look. What does Professor Naomi Fields? Again, this is also good because we know exactly who to look for. Suggest about the use of digital tools. So again, let's just very quickly have a look at the options. They can now complete tasks that once required. So in the past, once required highly trained professionals. They are most effective in industries that involve physical work. They are limited to organizing large amounts of information. So limited to, that just means only. So they can only organize large amounts of information. And the last one there is they reduce the need for human workers in factories. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find the answer. Remember, we're looking for the second paragraph and Professor Naomi Fields. So let's scroll back up here, get to the second paragraph. So you can see that it says her name straight away, Professor Naomi Fields. She says that digital tools are already transforming jobs that rely on expert judgment rather than physical labor. So what this is saying is that this is having an effect on jobs that require expert judgment or thinking rather than or not physical labor. So it's not affecting physical labor. Let's just keep reading and see what else it says. These tools are now capable of learning, okay, from huge amounts of data that that used to be carried out by specialists. Some advanced systems now review applications, okay, evaluate employee performance or analyze consumer behavior to help organizations make important decisions. So it's just giving a few examples there. So let's go back down and we'll choose the correct answer through the process of elimination. So we will remove the incorrect answers. So they can now complete tasks that once required highly trained professionals. Well, that looks good already because that's what it was saying. So we can circle that one. Looks pretty good. B, they are most effective in industries that involve physical work. Well, no, that's the opposite of what it said. So we can cross that one out. C, they are limited to organizing large amounts of information. Well, no, that's not true. It does not say they can only organize large amounts of information. D, they reduce the need for human workers in factories. Well, no, it doesn't say anything about that. So we can cross out that last option D. So the answer there must be A. All right, so let's move on to question 29 now. What did Professor Fields observe at the marketing company? So again, this is making it very clear what we need to look for. So that's great. Now let's quickly look at the potential options. An algorithm gave staff instructions about how to interact with clients, okay? Staff began choosing how to approach customers on their own, okay? The company used an algorithm to monitor employee performance. And finally, managers encouraged staff to ignore digital instructions. So let's go back up and see if we can find that. Remember, we're looking for Professor Fields and we're looking for a marketing company. So let's go back up. And we'll keep looking for the answer here. So in some situations, AI, no, nothing there. Many companies, no. More reliable, no. These tools comes with challenges, no, 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 nothing there about a company. Now, another concern is the influence, okay? Professor Fields, okay, spent more than 2 years studying, here we go, the internal operations of a large marketing company. So we found our keywords. So now let's slow down and we'll see what the actual paragraph says about this topic. So it says, in the past, sales staff and managers relied on personal judgment. But during my time at the company, there's that word algorithm. If you remember, that's what some of the options mentioned. So told them when to reach out to clients, what approach to take, and what type of products to offer. Okay, now let's just quickly keep reading because we don't know if the answer might be a bit further down. So Field explains that the system are often created by outside developers. That might be important. Ends up holding most of the knowledge. Okay. Over time, people start relying too heavily on what the systems tell them, learning to see things through its perspective. This growing independence can prevent workers from trying new things. Okay. Fields and her team even noticed finding ways to manipulate the system. So that could be important as well. And then it sort of goes on to a new topic. So let's go back to the question now, and we'll choose the correct answer. So letter A, an algorithm gave staff instructions about how to interact with clients. Well, yes, the algorithm did do that. So we can circle that. That looks good. B, staff began choosing how to approach customers on their own. No, didn't say anything about that. It said the opposite. C, the company used an algorithm to monitor employee performance. Well, no, it doesn't say anything about monitoring, how the employees went or what they were doing. And finally, managers encouraged staff to ignore digital instructions. Well, I do remember seeing the word manager, but it didn't say anything about encouraging staff to, not follow or ignore digital instructions. So we can cross that one out. So it looks like 29 is A. Let's move on to 30. In her recently published study, Dr. Olivia Chen. Okay, fantastic. It's telling us exactly where to look. We need to look for Dr. Olivia Chen, and we need to look for her study. So let's quickly look at the options. A, argues that job losses are unavoidable during times of technological change. Okay, claims that automation will create more problems than it solves. Okay, illustrates how job losses can be handled. Okay, suggests that governments are already doing enough. Okay, so governments already doing enough, protect workers. So let's go up and let's see if we can find the study by Dr. Olivia Chen. So let's start here. So situations like this, no. Fields, no. Okay. Professor Daniel Reyes, an economist, no. Reyes predicts, no. Professor Reyes, no. Here we go. Dr. Olivia Chen, here she is. So a researcher at the Institute for Economic Policy agrees that predictions, she argues, nothing about a study. Let's keep going. Here we go. Her recently published study, let's keep reading, explores whether automation, there's automation that was mentioned in the options, and AI will lead to widespread unemployment. History shows that job losses can happen during times of change. Can happen, so it's possible. But strong policies such as can address this and reduce the impact. She adds, if automation is going to reshape jobs, I hope governments use this chance. If you remember, one of the options was talking about governments. So let's just quickly check this. Strengthen employment laws, create more secure conditions for workers. Okay. She continues, we have the tools, so we need to use them. Okay. Chen's research calls on leaders in business and public policy to act early and introduce reform. A reform is a change, and it normally makes things better. Okay, I think that's it. So let's go down back to 30 and see if we can find the correct answer. So A argues that job losses are unavoidable during times of technological change. Well, Olivia Chen does talk about that, but she doesn't say they're unavoidable. She says they can happen. So that one is not correct. She does not say they are unavoidable. B claims that automation will create more problems than it solves. Well, she does talk about automation, but she doesn't say it's going to create more problems than it solves. C illustrates how job losses can be handled. Well, I remember something about that. So let's just quickly double check. She says, here it is. Strong policies can address this. Okay, so she's talking about how this problem can be dealt with or handled. So I think C looks good. D suggests that governments are already doing enough to protect workers. Well, she talks about governments, but she does not say they are already doing enough to protect workers. So we can remove D. So there you go. They were the multiple choice questions. Now let's move on to the next set of questions. Here they are, questions 31 to 34. All right, so let's read the instructions. They say, complete the summary using the list of words A to G below. Write the correct letter A to G in boxes 31 to 34 on your answer sheet. So note here, it says write the correct letter. So that means when you choose your answer, you don't need to write the word itself. You just need to write the letter. So as you can see, here is the summary itself. And there are some blanks, 31, 32, 33, and 34. Your job is to choose the correct word from this list here for each of the gaps or each of the blanks. So let's start by looking at the title. And this is really important because it's going to help you to know where to look for the answers. The title says Digital Tools in the Workplace. And if you remember, I think it was Professor Naomi Fields who was talking about this in paragraph 2. So we already know where to look for the answer. So let's have a look at this first sentence here and we'll talk about it. So Professor Naomi Fields has seen that digital tools are affecting occupations which require. So in the text, we're going to be looking for digital tools, of course, and we're going to be looking for how they have been affecting certain occupations or certain jobs which require or which need. So let's go to the top of the passage. I believe it was the second paragraph where Naomi talks about this. And yes, I can see it already. Digital tools. So let's quickly have a read and we'll see what we can find. So Professor Naomi Fields from the University of Toronto argues that digital tools are already transforming jobs. Okay, that has a similar meaning to affecting occupations that rely on or need expert judgment rather than physical labor. So the answer could be right here, and I think it is. So if you think about what she has, or what the passage has just said, how could you paraphrase that in your own words? What's another way to say that? Especially this bit here, relying on expert judgment. Well, when I think about that, I think it's saying that it's affecting jobs that need experience, because that's another way to say expert judgment. So now we've read the passage and we've thought about a paraphrase. Well, we can come back down to the questions and we can choose the best answer. So let's have a look at them one by one. First one, stress. Well, no, it doesn't say anything about affecting jobs that require stress. Comfort, no. Upgrade, no. Experience, yes, maybe. Creativity, no. Approval, no. And dependence, no. So the best answer there would have to be experience. Now, please note, I'm writing the full word just so you can see what it looks like in the sentence. Obviously, in the real test, you just need to write the letter. So we can cross out experience now because we've used that one already. So now let's continue and we'll find the next one. So it says, while studying a marketing company. Okay, that sounds familiar. We've already looked at that before. Fields found that employees were showing an increasing. So something is going up, something is becoming more. Something on the system's recommendations and used its way of thinking. So now we know what to look for. Let's go back up to the passage and find that marketing company. And I believe that was towards the end of the first page. So let's have a look. There we go, right there. Okay, large marketing company. So we know where to look. So let's have a quick read and see what it says. So Professor Fields spent more than 2 years studying how employees, that was one of the keywords there. So in the past, sales staff and managers, but during my time at the company, I saw, an algorithm tells the workers what to do and when to do it. Okay, let's keep going. Fields explains that the system created by outside developers, holds the knowledge, fair enough. People start, relying too heavily on what the system tells them, learning to see things only through its perspective. This sort of sounds similar to the end of the sentence in the summary. So if we have a look at that sentence there, which starts with over time, well, try and think about a different way to say that. How could you paraphrase that in your own words? So remember the summary said something is increasing. Well, I think that's talking about this thing here, or this part here, sorry. It says people start relying too heavily on ... So maybe another word for relying could be dependence or depending. So they are depending. They need that thing, or they need that algorithm, or they need that system. It's a necessity for them. So let's go back down and see if we can find the best word. So stress, well, no, doesn't say anything about stress, so that's not right. Comfort, no, doesn't say that. Upgrade, no. Creativity, no. Approval, no. Dependence, yes, it does talk about dependence, but it says reliance. So we can cross that off and we can put the word dependence in there. Now, always just quickly have a read after you put the word into the space, just to check that everything's okay. So Fields found that employees were showing an increasing dependence on the system's recommendation and used its way of thinking. Yeah, that looks good. That looks like it fits. So let's continue to the next one now. At the same time, workers may be discouraged from using their own something, which is important for coming up with new ideas. So what that's saying there is that workers might not be using something, and this is stopping them, or it's important, for them to use that thing to create new ideas. So maybe something to do with creativity or innovation. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find it. So let's start from where the previous answer was located, or which is right here. So let's read it together. This growing dependence can prevent workers. Okay, that sounds sort of like what they said in the summary, from trying new approaches or thinking independently, which are often key or important to advancement and innovation. So now we know that the answer's probably here. So we need to paraphrase it. We need to explain this in our own words. So what I'm thinking is that it's stopping employees from innovation, like it says here, and maybe it's talking about creativity because it's not allowing them to think of their own ideas. So let's go back down and we'll see if we can find the answer. So let's start from the top there. It says stress. No, it doesn't talk about stress. And think about it. If you put the word stress here, it wouldn't make sense as well. Comfort, no, doesn't talk about comfort. Upgrade, no. Creativity, yeah, that looks good. Approval, no. So we can cross out creativity and we can put that in there. Creativity. And again, just quickly check it. So workers may be discouraged from using their own creativity, which is important for coming up with new ideas. Yes, that looks good. And it sounds very similar to what we just read up above. Let's look at the last one now, which is 34. To stop the issues that fields witnessed, experts are working to make AI systems that users can use with greater or more. So we're looking for stopping something, and we're looking for making AI systems that might help users with something. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find the answer there. So let's start from where we finished before, which was around here. They're often key. Okay, let's keep going. Fields and her team noticed employees finding a way to manipulate. No, nothing there. We've seen examples. No. Situations like this are what are, okay. So this could be important. Trying to avoid. They want to design, okay, AI tools that people can use without confusion. So without confusion and feel at ease with, especially when those tools help make decisions. For now, we need to think carefully. Okay, so the answer's probably here. So let's try and paraphrase this bit here. So it seems like they're trying to make AI tools that users can trust or that users can have confidence in when they're actually using them. Because look here, it says feel at ease. If you feel at ease, you probably feel comfortable using something. You might feel relaxed using something. So let's go back down now and we'll see which word is the best choice. So again, start from the top. Stress, no. Comfort, okay, maybe. Upgrades, no. Approval, no. So it looks like comfort would be the correct answer there. Comfort. Now let's just double check. AI systems that users can use with greater comfort. Yes, that looks good. All right, so they were the completion questions. Let's go to the next set of questions now. So questions 35 to 40. Look at the following statements, okay? Questions 35 to 40 and the list of people below. Match each statement with the correct person, A, B, or C. Write the correct letter, A, B, or C, in boxes 35 to 40 on your answer sheet. NB, you may use any letter more than once. So just a few things to mention there. The first one is, again, it says write the correct letter. So when you choose your answer, write the letter, not the name of the person. Also note here, it says you can use any letter more than once. Because if you look here, there are 6 questions here, but there are only 3 people. Okay, so you can use each letter for each person more than once. Now, when you get this type of question, I recommend that you quickly have a look at the statements. Think about how to paraphrase them or think about how to say them in your own words. Then start with the first person, find out what they say, then go to the second person and the third person. So let's do that right now very quickly. Let's look at 35. Workers will have a less traditional career path than before, okay? Rules should be changed in order to make to make sure employees are treated fairly. Sorry, let me just highlight the keywords. A less traditional career path. This one here, rules should be changed, employees treated fairly. Changes in technology have caused job cuts in the past. So the keywords there will be changes in technology, caused job cuts, past. Next one, people need to consider how AI affects jobs. Okay. Next one, 39, more automation. Okay, will not necessarily reduce the total number of jobs available. And last one there, 40, AI offers various advantages that make it attractive to companies. So obviously one of the key parts there is AI, advantages, and attractive to companies. So now we've quickly had a look at the statements. Now we can start with the first person, and the first person is Naomi Fields. So let's go back to the very top of the passage, and we'll quickly see what she says. Because if you remember, I believe the first mention of her was in paragraph 2. Okay, so let's quickly have a look at what she says. She talks about transforming jobs. We've had a look at that before. The tools are capable of learning. Okay, fair enough. Some systems review applications. Fair enough. Okay, in some situations, AI and digital tools are proving to be more effective than people. Okay, many companies are drawn to them. Let me highlight that. Many companies are drawn to them because, if you remember, one of the statements was something about companies and advantages. So this could be where one of the answers is. They believe decisions made by machines are more reliable, and they're looking to lower costs and increase performance. Well, they're two advantages. So it looks like Naomi is the person who has said this. Now let's keep going. These tools come with challenges too. Okay, if software does this, in the past, people learned quietly, okay, without that kind of exposure. Okay, nothing really important there. Another concern is the influence, okay, spent more 2 years, okay, but during my time, I saw the algorithm, okay. Fields explains that the system created by outside developers, okay, people rely too heavily, yeah, this growing dependence, okay, we've already had quite a good look at that, so we can keep going. Fields and her team even noticed employees finding a way to manipulate, okay, nothing important there. Situations like this, they're trying to avoid, okay. For now, Fields says we need to think carefully. Okay. If you remember, there was a question which said something like people need to think about, I can't remember what it said, the problems with AI, something like that. So this could be it. This new era and technology present, particularly when it comes to professional expertise, job responsibilities, and control in the workplace. And then it goes on to the next person. So let's quickly go back down and we'll see which statements relate to Naomi. So first one, less traditional career path. No, it doesn't say anything, or she didn't say anything about that. Rules should be changed. No, it doesn't talk about that. Changes in technology have caused job cuts in the past. No. 38, people need to consider how AI affects jobs. Yes, that was the one we saw last. Okay, so we can put A there for Naomi. Number 39, more automation. Well, no, there was nothing about that. AI offers advantages that make it attractive to companies. Yes, because we found that on the first page in one of the, I think it was the third paragraph. So we can put A there. So we'll cross off 40, cross off 38. So we've done Naomi. Now let's move on to Daniel Reyes. So let's go back up and we'll see if we can find where he was. I believe he was on the second page. There we go. Okay, Daniel Reyes. An economist believes the idea of a straightforward career path. Okay, that could be something about, I think it was the first one, which talked about not having a traditional career path, something like that. So the old model is no longer realistic, okay? So Reyes predicts that future workers will have several career shifts, okay? So it looks like this will be the answer for number, I think it was the first one, 35. He describes this as a part of a flexible journey, okay? When it comes to automation, okay, there was a statement which talked about automation. Professor Reyes believes that many concerns are based on a misunderstanding, okay? People often assume that the number of jobs stays the same. He says, but that's rarely true, okay? If in 20 years, okay, he just gives some details. And then it goes to Olivia Chen. So we can go back down and we'll see which statements relate to Daniel. So let's have a look at the first one. Workers will have a less traditional career path than before. Yes, absolutely. So we can put B there. He definitely talks about that. Rules should be changed. No. Changes in technology have caused job cuts in the past. No. more automation will not necessarily reduce the total number of jobs available. Yes, he does talk about that. So we can cross off 35 and we can cross off 39. Now, and we'll tick Daniel Reyes as done. Now, if this was the real test and you're about to run out of time, well, for 36 and 37, you could just quickly write C. But if you do have time, just quickly check, because when you're under pressure, when you're trying to do things quickly, you may make mistakes. So just quickly check, and that's what we'll do now, because this is obviously not a real test and we don't have the issue of time pressure. So let's have a look at Olivia Chen. What did she say? So let's go up here. Here we go. So let me get my highlighter. Okay, so Dr. Olivia Chen, predictions about mass unemployment are often exaggerated or maybe not 100% correct. It's not technology that takes jobs. It's outdated policies. Okay. It's not technology that causes job losses. Okay, let's keep going. She talks about automation as well. Okay, AI will lead to widespread unemployment. History shows that job losses can happen during times of change, but strong policies such as retraining can address this. Okay, she adds, if automation is going to reshape jobs, I hope governments, can use this chance to strengthen laws or maybe change laws to create more secure conditions for workers. Well, that was what one of these statements was about. So Chen's research calls on leaders in business and public policy to act, to do something, to introduce reforms. We talked about that. That's when you change something, normally for the better. Workers' rights, fair wages, and ensure the benefits. Okay, the possibilities offered are incredible. The changes, this major shift could completely redefine how we work, live, and communicate. Okay, so let's go back. And let's have a look. So, rules should be changed. Yes, she definitely says that, because she talks about reform and strengthening things. And 37, changes in technology have caused job cuts in the past. Yes, she did talk about that.